Welcome everyone to the Office of Undergraduate Research Education Series. We're so excited to have you all here. Today you are joining us for data visualization and research posters. We have speakers joining us, Greg Hatch and Donna Baluchi. We'll introduce them in just a minute. But before we introduce them, there's just some information we'd like to share with you. We wanted to remind everyone that this is a virtual event, that this event is being recorded, and so please turn off your camera and mute yourself if you are not the speaker, unless if you want to make sure they see that visual eye contact, but please mute yourself if you're not the speaker. You may use the chat feature to ask any questions, and we'll be reviewing those and sharing those with our speakers. We also want to remind our participants to evaluate the speaker series event. We'll go ahead and plop into the chat feature the link to information about how you can do that, give some feedback. This is required for UR scholars to receive credit for the event. So a little bit about the Office of Undergraduate Research mission. The mission of the University of Utah's Office of Undergraduate Research is to facilitate and promote undergraduate student faculty collaborative research and creative works in all disciplines throughout the University of Utah campus. In recognition that excellence requires diversity, we pursue this mission through equitable programming that promotes diverse representation and social justice. We also want to acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The University of Utah recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and the traditional homelands. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes and states and the federal government, and we affirm the University of Utah's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and community outreach activities. Now, without further ado, my name is Dr. Annie Sabel Fukushima. I'm the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Studies and the Director of the Office of Undergraduate Research. I'd like to introduce you to the speakers who will be taking the lead and presenting and facilitating today's education series. First, I'd like to introduce Greg Hatch, who is the Head of Creativity and Innovation Services at the MARRIOTT Library. And presenting with Greg is Donna Baluchi, who is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Librarian. So without further ado, welcome to our presenters.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. As Annie so wonderfully introduced me, my name is Donna Baluchi, and I'm the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Librarian, but I am up at the Eccles Health Sciences Library here on campus.
As Annie said, I'm Greg Hatch. I am a librarian at the MARRIOTT Library, and I'm a liaison with all of the performing arts departments, in addition to being the head of Creativity and Innovation Services.
And the two of us are coming to you from our respective AV studios that are available at both of our libraries to kind of show you some of the ways in which you can make your research posters look as best as they possibly can, as well as all the resources that are available to you to make them look amazing, that also happen to be on this campus, that are available to you as students, but also like the two of us, we are resources. So what we're going to be talking about today, to sort of like kick all this off, instead of just talking about research posters, I'm going to be talking about visual communication. So visual communication is how to convey information using a visual thing, right? So this presentation right now, what I am employing is visual communication. So when creating your posters, the most important thing on there is your information. So you want to make sure that people are able to walk up to your poster or click on it online and be able to understand the information fully. So you want to make sure that it's easily read, that it's easily comprehended, and that it's easily retained. Right? So the best bit of advice I like to give students are think of your poster like a billboard, right? You only have so much room and you only have so much time to capture someone's attention and make sure you get your information across, right? And one of the things I try to always make sure that students think about is think about what the other person's brain is going to be doing when they walk up to your information. So keep your audience in mind. So one of the examples I want to use is how many of you just like in general saw this billboard? It was very, it got a lot of attention, right? It was just the word Weezer, which is a band. It was in Comic Sans, which is a memed font, right? But what information was being conveyed with this billboard? And if you want to, you can drop it in the chat or you can unmute if anybody has any insight. So I know this billboard was conveying something, but nobody quite knew what it was. And then later on, we found out that it was an influencer on TikTok who was just trying to get Weezer's attention. And then it worked because Weezer ended up buying a billboard that said, thanks for whoever did that billboard, and put it by the Sprouts in Murray. So in the end, this was effective. However, it didn't really convey information as well as you think it should, right? So try to think about your posters in the same way when you're trying to get that information across. So these are just some of the elements of design. So I went to school for graphic design and I decided to change my major, but I still have a lot of those skills. And that's what I bring to my research posters and the research posters of a lot of people who come to see me for help. And the things that you kind of want to think about when it comes to design of your research poster, out of all of these things, is the color, the size, and the space, right? And space being the white space, the space that lives between the things, right? So first you want to think about size. So how big is each section? Is the most important information bigger? Is the most important information really big and in the middle? What is important? Is the title important? Are the authors and your name important? Is the QR code important? Is the graphic elements important? So think about how big each section should be, right? And the next thing is your font. I know people love to get creative with fonts and use things like, Chiller, or Papyrus, or Comic Sans, like the Weezer billboard. But when it comes to your research posters, you want to make sure that the font is easy to read. There are some really cool fonts out there, but they might not be the easiest for someone to actually look at and understand, right? And then the other thing, are you using a different font all over your poster? Maybe only stick to one or two. And then color. So I know a lot of us use the Utah red on our posters, and then we have a white background and we have black text. And then other people are like, I'm going to go wild, and they have the whole rainbow on there. So what you want to do when you're putting color on there, make sure that the color is adding to the poster and making the poster look more inviting and more exciting, or it's getting information across better. And one of the things, so Greg is going to actually show you some really great ways in which you can decide what colors to use and how many to use. But some of the things to think about, are there only 2 to 4 colors? And is there cohesion between the colors? Are the colors matching? Are the colors opposites so they complement each other? Stuff like that. And then the last thing is your layout. Where are the words going to go? Where are the graphs going to go? Where are the pictures going to go? Where's your title going to go? Where's your name going to go? Where's the QR code going to go? So you want to think about layout. And one of the things that I try to emphasize as much as possible is try to incorporate more white space, just totally blank areas, right? Because that is where, when someone is reading your poster, their brain is going to take a break. And when you take a break, you're able to take information in a little bit better. Annie was able to send me and show me that there was people who are coming to this class who are from all different kinds of majors. So we have people in the humanities, people in the health sciences, people in other STEM fields. And so I want to talk about the difference between creative posters and scientific posters, and the way that you can show your data or what you were working on in ways that are pictorial. So if you're doing something with the humanities, or say like me and Greg, and you work at libraries, a lot of what you'll be talking about is qualitative data. And so qualitative data, how you can highlight that in your research posters is you can have things like anecdotes, stories, you can have displays. A lot of times people use photographs. You can use things like stock photos. I've seen people do things like pull quotes and put them in a speech bubble. There's a lot of different, like, more pictorial and more qualitative ways to show what you're talking about, versus quantitative, where you might be using statistics, you're going to be using graphs and charts, you might be using figures, or in the, what Greg is going to show later, you might be using things like really cool data visualizations. So it is possible to do both of these things and still have a really effective, really cool looking poster.
All right, I'm going to step in and start talking a little more specifically about the creation of the posters that you'll be doing for your undergraduate research program. As the title of this slide says, PowerPoint is the industry standard. I am stating that emphatically. I don't know anyone who uses other tools to create posters for conferences and research presentations, but there are other tools that are available, such as InDesign, which is a very high-end graphic design program, and LaTeX, which is very much focused towards the STEM fields. But once again, I would highly recommend PowerPoint. While it's designed for presentations like we're giving right now, taking an individual slide in PowerPoint, it is possible for you to customize the dimensions. If you are in a Mac, you would, both Mac and PC, you'll go up to the file size and change the slide size dimensions. If you're using it online, you can do a search in the application itself and search for the phrase slide size, and it'll show you where you can change your dimensions. And it's worth noting that the dimensions for the U.R.VIRTUal program, the posters are intended to be 48 inches wide and 36 inches tall, or 4 feet wide and 3 feet tall. It's also really important when you're creating these posters in PowerPoint, which is on a tiny computer screen. Everything looks really sharp and fantastic, but when you blow it up to full size, you're stretching out the imagery. And if you do not put in a high resolution picture, and we recommend 300 pixels per inch, that's what PPI stands for, your images will end up looking very pixelated, very blurry when you print it out. So there's a link here for the Adobe Photoshop tool showing you how to open up an image in Photoshop and check its resolution and or to export out of PowerPoint so that it does have a 300 PPI resolution, and then taking that JPEG image and importing it into your document. It's also worth noting that your font sizes want to be large enough for you to be able to see them from at least 6 feet away. When you're in a poster session, you're in a large room with a dozen or hundreds of other people, and you want to capture the eye of your audience. So one way of doing that is through the visuals, which we're going to talk about shortly, but it's also using the right size font so somebody can read the title, get engaged by your poster, come in a little closer, and be able to read the little bit of text that you're including in your poster from about 6 feet away. So just think of it as, COVID all the time. We want to be able to see and read and communicate with our viewers from 6 feet away. Next slide, please. It's worth noting that the MARRIOTT Library and Eccles Health Sciences staff have started creating poster templates for you to use. There's been a long time standard. You can see in the upper left corner there a version of the original and probably the most common poster design for conferences, but these are very text heavy and not visually engaging. While those templates exist and they're available for you to use if you want to go with that old style, we have started creating more visually engaging templates. You can see in the lower left one poster that was designed that is referred to as the rule of thirds. You can see that there's a white space there where we would replace that with one large graphic to capture our audience's attention. There's a large poster title that goes across the top. There are a few graphics in there and a lot of white space in between all of the various elements where you might have background and research methodology and the data I collected and the conclusions that I'm drawing, and the acknowledgements and citations, all of that can fit on there. Plus, in the lower right-hand corner, you see a QR code. It's using a QR code will allow you to put minimal amounts of data and text onto your poster, and then your audience can scan that QR code, be directed to a website that has all of the data, all the methodology, all of the content, if they really want to dig in deeper for what you're doing. So we recommend that you go to the campus guide, campusguides.lib.utah.edu/posters. There's lots of information
Here's what it looks like.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of information about creating posters there. And on that second tab, currently the poster top to bottom is where you'll find some templates, including some of the ones, the basic ones that were created that are mostly text, as well as some of the new visual imagery ones there. And you can download them and use them, and they're all set up already with a 3-foot by 4-foot dimension, and they're ready to go. Donna mentioned earlier the basic design elements, and color was one of those, being able to communicate using color. And we have some tools here as well as some recommendations. Adobe has a color coordination wheel where if you decide that your base color is going to be University of Utah red, it'll show you complementary colors that can work well with that or contrast with that. There's another tool that we've linked here, Material Palette, which does a very similar thing. And it's worth noting that when you see those colors online, PowerPoint will accept the color, the hexadecimal code for entering that exact color into the PowerPoint. What you're looking for is a 6-digit alphanumeric number. So it'll be, it might be A, B, C, D, E, or 0 through 9 in that combination. And I want to talk a little bit about the difference between colors that you see on your screen, because you're designing on your computer versus colors that you see in print. The poster, in most cases, will be printed and be on paper or on fabric and seen visually. There are 2 different color systems that are used when presenting color. RGB is what your television uses. It's what your computer uses. RGB stands for red, green, blue, and it's the combination of those colors of light that create the full spectrum of color. Whereas in print, we use CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, K for black. And it's those 4 colors where light is reflecting, or light is reflecting off of the color and creating the image that goes into your eye. So we have additive or projected light from a screen and subtractive or reflected light in printed. And it's important to note that the number of colors that you can convey in a digital environment or in a screen projected environment is 16 million, over 16 million. But in a printed environment, it's a modest 2,000 colors. So you might choose a color in that looks fantastic on your screen, but there isn't a corresponding exact color in print. So it's important to know that what you see on your screen appears very bright and vibrant, and what is printed on paper will look slightly dimmer or darker. So if it's really important to you, always print a sample of your poster, even if it's on a small little 8.5 by 11 sheet, and see what the colors look like in real life before you pay for the large size poster. I also want to point out that it's important for you to include contrast in your posters. Colors that are too similar to each other and next to each other on a slide will not appear as different colors, and people will not be able to differentiate them if they have some form of color blindness. So I am recommending that you use this tool that we have linked here. Take your poster, export it as a JPEG just for the test, upload that JPEG into the color blindness simulator, and then step through the 6 or 7 or 8 variations of color blindness and see what your poster looks like. See if the imagery stands out. See if the text stands out against a color background. Make sure that your poster looks good for everyone, no matter what kind of eyesight they have. So next slide, please. So the MARRIOTT Library and the Eccles Health Sciences Library have purchased a large number of resources. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead one slide. Sorry. We want to give you some options for data visualizations. This is the creation of charts and graphs and other ways of illustrating the data that you have collected. There is one website here in the upper left-hand corner, visualizing data, that actually lists dozens and dozens of free and for a fee, but most of the for a fee also have a free option or free for a week or free for 30 days option. So just enough time for you to create your posters. But they create links to a large number of online resources where you can enter your data, craft some sort of wonderful visual content, and export that into a JPEG, which you would then be able to incorporate into your slide. And again, keeping in mind that you want to export as high resolution as possible. One of the best ones that I have used in the past and is really great for scientific data, when you've got numbers to crunch and you've got fields that you want to put labels onto, that sort of thing, is the raw graphs. This is a free product, free, always free, and a fantastic export. You can see across the bottom of this slide 5 versions of exported data from the raw graphs. So it's fairly easy to use, fairly intuitive, and really powerful, as you can see from those images. I'm not going to talk about the other ones other than to say that they incorporate data in different ways. Tableau and ArcGIS are really great for mapping data. And if you are interested in more programmatic versions of data, you can go into the data or of images. You can go into the data-driven documents GitHub page. So next slide, please. So as I was starting to say before, the university libraries at the University of Utah have purchased a large number of research databases, some of which include images. Some are image heavy, some of them include images along with the research articles and research data. So if you were to click on that link or go to that webpage, databases.tools.lib.utah.edu, and then choose from the drop-down by type and select on images, you will see a large number of databases, some of which are represented here on this page, that provide visual data. I have examples here. Digital magazines are a fantastic way to find visual imagery from historical magazines. I have just a few examples here: Jet, Ebony, and Vogue, and we have a lot more. Birds of the World, really fantastic for those of you who are into ornithology and want images of birds. JSTOR and ArtStore. These are, JSTOR is a full text database going back to the very first issue of many scientific and social science and arts and humanities scholarly journals. ArtStore is its sister organization where all of the content is visual. We're talking about artwork from museums hanging on walls, statues. We're talking about architectural drawings and photographs of architectural buildings or installations. It might be costume designs. It might be scenic designs. It really is an extraordinary amount. And these databases will tell you whether or not the content is available for you to use in your scholarship, or if you have to ask for permission to use those items. Anatomy.tv and Imaging Reference Center are really great for those of you in the health sciences as well. So just a recommendation or a reminder to always cite, or that is give credit to every image that you take, no matter where you take it from. If it's a scholarly database or a free website on the internet, always give credit where credit is due. Point your viewers to where you found that content so they can explore it further. Other image databases that we are image resources that I am recommending are free and available on the web. So they're not things that the Marriott Library has paid for. Image repositories that are free on the web. And I have those linked through a different campus guide for visual communication. Look for the tab called Finding Images. I have links to a large number of places there, some of which are highlighted here. The Noun Project is a place where graphic designers around the world have created black and white illustrations. You can download a JPEG. They tell you whether or not you can use it with attribution, or how you can use that particular image. Flickr and Openverse both have photographs, and a lot of the people who upload the content have indicated through the Creative Commons whether or not you can use that image or modify that image, or if you have to give them credit, or you can use it without giving credit. The Smithsonian is the United States sort of museum, and they have tons of content of artwork, of scientific, aerospace, you name it, they have images of it. It's all those museums throughout Washington, D.C. And then Europeana and the Digital Public Library of America are some digital repositories of unique special collections items from libraries and museums around the world, where they have digitized cultural, historical objects and made those images searchable and findable and downloadable through these two websites. So Europeana and the Digital Public Library of America, really great for discovering cultural content. Next slide, please. So now that we've talked a little bit about where you can go to find resources to create posters and add imagery or visual content into those posters, we're going to talk a little bit about or look at some recommended poster designs that are heavily visually oriented. And we have links to two different websites. We are going to actually pop out and look at some of these. This is going to be an interactive moment, so please get ready to chat or turn on your microphone and talk to us. We're going to go to the Animate Your Science page, where there are a number of recommended styles and templates. And I will say that these have been influential in the new templates that we're creating for all of you and putting onto that poster LibGuides. So the questions that we want to ask you are based on what you have heard from us today about the design principles. What are you seeing in some of the poster designs that we have here? Oh, that's a great little sort of comment here. Let's scroll to the first sort of illustration of a poster. I love this sort of the basic description of the old-fashioned research poster on the left, which is some Excel exported charts and graphs with a lot of very small black text, which you can't read from more than 2 feet away, versus something that is visually engaging. They call it pretty, but I say it's visually engaging. It draws you in. You see this cellular structure. You say, okay, I'm interested in cells. I want to go find out a little more. They've given us our research methodology, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the left-hand side. I can see maybe some of the research conclusions, and they have links to websites, a QR code that is going to point you to all of the data if I really want to dig in deep. But what this poster does is draws your audience in and gets them to engage in a conversation with you. You don't have to say it all in the poster. It's the conversation with your audience where you can get into the nitty-gritty. So let's look at some real posters that they have pulled as exceptional poster designs and see how they've broken them down into their visual elements. So some of the recommendations that we've given to you here today is a logo, large titles across the top, a beautifully large graphic image to capture someone's attention. We have large font headings so that we can, it's easy for people to find the content they're looking for. They have a really nice balance of color, I think. The comic that we see at the top has sort of reds and pinks and yellows. The bar graphs that we have on the bottom also have those same colors, so it's really nicely balanced here, with blue being sort of a disappearing background color for all of the labels. Is there anything on this particular image that anyone wants to comment on or talk about?
I'll go first. I'll say that I really like that the abstract is shown as a comic, because I feel like comics really convey information in a much more enjoyable and entertaining way, but also because there's graphical elements, I feel like I remember them better.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that really is a unique element here. And I would guess all of us know somebody who is really into doodling, and maybe you can hire them to create a graphic comic 4-paneled graphic for you to illustrate the research and your conclusions.
There's a comment. There's a comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Donna. I just want to.
Oh, I was going to read the
great.
comment too.
Great, go ahead. Take it away.
Okay, I see that one person asked, do you think we need more white space here? What do you think, Greg?
I actually think the white space is okay here. If I was really being critical, I would say that I would not have taken the text in the background and the aims and methods and conclusions and made them justified to the outside. That sort of takes up some of that white space that would have been on the left and right-hand side and put it in between all of the letters, which I actually think makes it harder to read. So I would keep the text at a regular kerning where the letters are all and words are spaced out exactly the same, and leave some of the white space around the edges. Maybe they've put in a few too many graphics. They may have been able to stay down to maybe 2-bar graphs instead of 4-bar graphs, and give themselves a little more white space. So yes, I think that is a valid critique in this particular case.
I agree. I also think that the of the text in the bottom half of there's a middle gutter there. I would have made that gutter a little bit bigger just because it would have just made reading the text a lot easier. Any other questions?
Yeah, so that goes to the white space as well. Left and right white space between the 2 panels on,
this
on the bottom.
I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this thing right here.
Yep, I agree. Other comments?
Yes, I keep seeing QR codes in the top right. Is that just a link to the digital version of the poster? It depends. So some researchers, the QR code will go. So for example, at certain conferences, a QR code will go to a link that's part of the conference website that will have a digital version of the poster and usually some more text, or in the case of doing digital posters for the Office of Undergraduate Research, there will actually be a much more interactive page where there will be audio or video of yourself that someone could click on so they could look at the poster as well as watch a video of you explaining what is happening. In other cases, I've seen the QR code actually goes to the research paper that someone has written. So it'll go to a database or it'll go to the journal page with the full research paper. I've seen others that will have QR codes that will actually go to like a GitHub page, and then the GitHub will have everything from the paper to the figures to the raw data. So it really just depends on what the researcher wants to make available. For all of you, it'll probably be a URL that will just go to a repository on the OUR site that will have both your poster and a video and maybe some text that you will provide.
But it's really entirely up to you. If you have a location where you're able to upload your data, put all of the visual elements, all the assets that you've created. If you finish the poster with the QR code and then put a version of the poster into that website as well, it can really be a catch-all. It really is entirely up to you. I see that Travis has asked a question. Are there too many colors in the graphs? I don't personally think that there's too many colors, but it does bring to mind the idea of color blindness. We have a lot of very sort of light tones in the colors. So it's light gray, medium gray. The orangey color is sort of a gray. Even the red and the black are almost the same sort of tone as far as a depth of color. And I would bet that if we put this through the colorblind simulator, that there are multiple versions of color blindness where all of those bars and graphs would look pretty much the same tone of gray going across. So if nothing else, I'm not seeing a lot of contrast in the color, although with the comics, it's sort of a peach, it's a yellow, and it's a black or a gray. So I don't think there's too many colors as much as the tones are all very similar.
Yeah, and then the colors in the graphs may actually be for a reason. They may have like a different color for each bar because they're indicating that these are completely different things. Whereas the other ones right here where it's like 3 bars are the same color, usually the colors used in bar graphs are trying to denote different things. If they're just different colors because they wanted to do different colors to give it some color, maybe maybe don't do that. That just, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
can see in the lower left, the lowest graph,
Right here.
that one has a key on the right-hand side that says this color means this item. So in that particular case, color has meaning. In the upper right graphs, I don't see that same designation, and maybe they could have eliminated the color if you were concerned about too much. But it's all about balance as well. If I have color on this side, it helps to balance out a poster in this particular case. So I'm actually okay with the variety of color here. Again, the only concern might be the tone, that they're all of similar sort of shades. So let's look at another one. This is really great. Thank you all for chiming in with some of your questions and concerns.
Here we go.
So this is the one that we had on the slideshow that I thought was beautiful enough to at least go into our slideshow. So rather than us critiquing this one, why don't we have a few other people chime in with either talking or sharing in chat? What are you seeing in this particular poster that is working well visually? Let's start with a positive comment. What is working well with this particular poster?
First comment is, I love the bird. It really grabs your attention. Absolutely agree.
100%. I want to go in. I want to see this finch. I didn't know that a wild zebra finch stood out or existed. And you'll note that they sort of emphasize the type of bird that you're seeing by changing the font color of those three words in the title. So they're working well together. Other comments?
I'll just read them off. The rows are all isolated topics, which is clearly laid out. Yeah, and I like that the titles are vertical with each one as well. So it just, and then that spacing between where there's a nice big gap that tells you that you're looking at something different. I love how they made the sections separated. Fully agree. Spacing, I think that it's using blank space well and that its layout is great. I like that the title has a colored portion. Yeah, me too. You get a lot of information from the graphs and pictures instead of reading multiple paragraphs. Yes, that's the big thing that a lot of you can focus on when you're making your posters. The color theme looks great too. Aha, the color theme.
Yeah, it's interesting that they chose, really in this particular case, pretty much three colors. You know, it's black, it's white, and it's brown or brownish orange, sort of a rusty color. And there might be slight variations where we have two colors that are in relationship to each other. But for the most part, we have a very modest palette that is working super effective. And I'm not seeing any concerns with regard to color blindness, because where we have a dark sort of rusty brown is over top of a very light section. So it's going to stand out whether or not I can see that color brown. The white panels behind are helping to make the black text pop out. They're using bold for a few keywords at the beginning of a statement to draw your eye, and the rest of it might be just additional details. But if I'm glossing over this poster, I'm probably going to read the bold stuff first. Yeah, I think this is a really fantastic poster. And when we say white space, it doesn't, as you can see from this poster, it doesn't necessarily have to be white. In this particular case, they chose sort of a gray tone in the background, and it really has given them a neutral palette on which to build. They could put a color in front of it, they could put black on front of it, they could put white on the front of it, and they all stand out from that neutral tone in the background. Moreover, as the critique on the right-hand side points out, they gave a margin around the outside, so it helped to sort of focus your attention into the content inside. So this is a really great poster. Should we look at one more? I'm looking at our time. We have time for one more poster critique, I think.
I want to mention, I really like the color theme because the color theme is the bird. They got the color from the bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so.
All right. So here's another one. This one, let's go the other way around. So we were talking about the things that we really liked about the last poster. Let's be critical this time. What are the things that are not working and why? What do you think is not working and why? Okay, Ellie says that this poster is text heavy. It does seem to have a lot of text scattered throughout. There's no break. It's almost as though there's text like every inch we see a line. There's spaces in between, but yeah, it's feeling like a very text dense, even though they're not using a lot of text. What else is a critique here?
Not sure what order to look at everything in. Yeah. Like, do you read across? Do you read down? Do you start with crustacean domination, or do you start with which crab is which?
Yeah, I would agree with that because my eye, because there's two vertical sort of columns there, my instinct actually was to read everything on the left first and then everything on the right. Although I know humans in general, when we're looking at like a website, we actually read from the top right and we scan across to the left, then drop down and scan across to the right again, and sort of in an F shape or an E shape. So I think they're following that particular instinct, but they almost work against it with their two columns here. Alyssa says, I think the middle graphic takes a lot away from the rest of the poster. I'm interested in Alyssa commenting further and say, why do you think that image is taking away? Ellie says that the text seems small. This is hard to tell because, of course, we're looking at a web page and we're looking at it teeny tiny. I'm not entirely sure if it's too small in this particular case, because when this gets blown up to a 4-foot tall, 3-foot wide poster, it might actually be plenty large. But it's good to be aware of that so that when you have your poster, always useful when you're in PowerPoint, to view your poster at 100% and see if you can read the images on your screen from 6 feet away, or read the text from 6 feet away. Travis says text heavy, but I would mention that the subheadings give clear and interesting direction to each section. So I like the subheadings. It looks like a nature science book to me. So I'm inclined to want to read it more. That's just me. That's great. There is some directional indication in the headers. If you look, there's a little arrow sort of pointing. So maybe this particular author recognized that there was a flow issue, and they added those little sort of pointy arrows to say, next, the next spot to read is to your right. So, so maybe they counteracted that just a little bit.
And Hannah said, isn't it assumed to be read left to right, top to bottom? I would point out that most people, when reading something, tend to read in an F pattern. So like F, got it? Okay. So anything that you're putting in the bottom right are usually going to be the things like your QR codes, your citations, your things that aren't what you want to grab people's attention with.
So we have a question. Will the black background cause issues for colorblind audience members? This is a fantastic example where I would take this poster in PowerPoint, export it as a JPEG for using in the color blindness simulator, upload it, and then go through all of those permutations of color blindness where it simulates, it takes out different colors, and you will start to see whether or not this poster ends up being readable or legible for somebody with a particular color blindness. I want to say, though, that there is research that supports the contrast between yellow, black, and white. Those three colors stand out against each other more than any other colors, which is why our highway warning signs are printed in yellow, black, and white. So it may be that they chose this color very smartly, recognizing that yellow was going to pop out, that black text over yellow would work very nicely. So it very much worth an exploration using the color blindness tool to answer your question. So looking at the time, let's go back to our slideshow. We actually are going to take a very quick minute to look at our own posters. Donna and I created posters years ago before we started sort of thinking about really strategically how to create a poster that was visually engaging. And I think we both just had an instinct for it. So this first one is Donna's. And I'm interested in everyone critiquing this, positives or things that you would do differently.
And you're not going to hurt my feelings. I've already presented this poster. It is.
People are thinking about whether or not they want to. Oh, so the text is small and heavy.
Yes.
Donna?
Yeah, the text was small. However, this poster was like massive. So I actually presented this in person at the Medical Librarian Association conference last year. And my poster was like 4 feet wide, probably. It was really, really big. So it was pretty legible if you walked up to it. However, the majority of the text was generally unnecessary. I feel like that middle text was really getting across what I needed to do. No graphs, charts to display data. Yeah, I didn't use graphs or charts to display data because in this instance, I did not have data outside of one data point of how many menstrual cups we sold. So I chose to not use that because, this was not a research project that involved actual like hard data and research. Instead, this was a grant in which we made menstrual cups available for $5 to the campus community. And what I was trying to do was tell other people, you should do this. We sold out of them almost immediately. Everybody wants menstrual cups, make them available to people. They are sustainable.
So in the interest of time, let's go to the next slide and we'll take 1 minute to look at the poster that I created a number of years ago. Ironically, it's a poster about visualization.
And thank you for the positive stuff about my important points were bolded in the paragraphs and that I like the large text in the middle. This is actually a template that you can use from Mike Morrison that we can show you. But to go forward, here's Greg's.
So again, what is good about this poster and what would you have changed if it was your poster?
Travis says, I like the data flow arrows because it shows you where to go.
Very much so. So this sort of ties into the earlier question about, isn't it sort of common or presumed that you would read top left to right and top to bottom? And the answer is probably yes. So in this particular case, in order for me to get all of what I wanted to communicate in, this was the order that I decided to go in and needed to tell people, read it in clockwise formation. All right, just because we are going to run out of time, we got 10 minutes, we're going to move on to the next part of the presentation, which is sort of the practical issues of printing your poster. So for those of you who are doing posters in the fall, you're going to be doing a digital poster online, and we're going to talk a little bit about your resources momentarily. But for everyone else, as we go into spring and into summer, your posters will be printed, and the Marriott Library offers you a very reasonable, inexpensive way to print posters. I cannot emphasize enough to use Marriott Library as your poster printing office and not going to someplace like a commercial printing place. I won't give a name, but I will tell you that they are going to charge you up to 4 or 6 times as much as the Marriott Library. So in order to export from PowerPoint, you must follow these directions to get a good, clean reproduction at the right size. So as you are exporting from PowerPoint, do not export directly into a JPEG. Instead, you're going to export into a PDF. This will embed RGB color mode information. Remember the red, green, blue from a visual presentation. PowerPoint is intended to be presented on a screen. When we go, then we take that PDF and we're going to open it up into Photoshop. And you all have access to Photoshop on the university's computer lab computers. You can download the software. The university has a site license, so you can get it for free onto your own computers. When you are in Photoshop, navigate to the image menu, then to the mode submenu and choose CMYK color. It's going to convert the code into a print-oriented color. Next, you're going to go into the File menu, choose Export, then choose Export As, and make sure that the format equals JPEG. Then you will confirm, yes, I want to export. You should also confirm that the resolution size is 300. This is the resolution you want for printed content. Once you have that JPEG file, you can then bring it on a flash drive, or you can upload it to the Marriott Library print and copy or copy and print website. We have the URL there. If you drop it off at the Marriott Library, it'll get printed instantly. If there's not a line, it may take up to 24 hours at a very heavy period, like the day before the U.R.V.IRTUAL poster session. So don't wait to the very last minute. The cost is $2.88 per square foot. Again, that cost is at least 4 times less than you will find at commercial printers. So next slide, please. For those of you who are presenting in the fall, you will upload a high-resolution JPEG of your poster onto the U.R.V.IRTUAL website, and then you are going to be asked to give a 5-minute presentation. And you can do that either in a video format or an audio format. And the Marriott Library and the Eccles Health Sciences Library have self-service recording studios, the ones that we're sitting in right here. This is the One Button Studio at Marriott Library. The upper right-hand photo is 2 additional booths. One is dedicated as a podcast booth. It just has a microphone in there. You can bring your own laptop and record directly into it, or you can use the computer in the room to record a file and then download that to a flash drive, upload it to a cloud storage system, whichever you prefer. If you use the video studios, the exported file has both a video and an audio track on it, and you could take out the video and just save the audio if you wanted to do narrative. So I'm going to turn it over now to Donna for the rest of the presentation.
Yeah, so we also have a studio up here. Ours is sort of a giant one in everything in here, as you can see from the photo, but I could move my camera around. So you can actually film yourself with really nice lighting and doing your presentation and upload that. We have a podcasting studio, but you could also use that to get a really good audio recording of yourself. And you can also put together presentations where you have a slide and video, or slide with audio if you wanted to do that as well. You can make reservations online using this URL that's here on the slide, or you can just stop by our library and say, hey, can I use the studio? And it doesn't get used so much that you wouldn't, that it might not, it might be open. It might be open if you just stop by. Yeah. And so this is just to show everybody. So this is the fall 2021, how the virtual posters look. So you can actually go to that website and you can actually see how other undergraduate research symposiums that had virtual posters looked. So it can kind of give you some ideas of like what you want your page to look like, and how you want everyone being able to see your poster, or how they're going to be able to like listen in, and how you want that to play out in terms of your digital posters, as opposed to in-person posters, which the spring, and then there's the summer symposium as well. So here's just some of the links. OUR has a ton of education videos that you can use that are all on YouTube. There's the Creating Effective Research posters by Dr. Sparks that we both recommend. There are library research guides that have tons of these links and explanations that were written by me and Greg that can help you out. And one specifically on visual communication if you're looking for that. But most importantly, you can also schedule a consultation with us. I had a summer OUR student meet with me, she probably met with me like 6 times. And it was awesome, where each time she came to me, we worked on her poster a little bit more, and we made it into something that she was really, really proud of. And then I got to go to the summer symposium where she had her poster printed, and she got to explain the whole thing to me. And it was really exciting, and it was great to see. And all of you are more than welcome to do that as well. Both of these links are how you can make online virtual booking reservations with each of us. But I'm actually on campus a lot up on at the Eccles Health Sciences Library. So if you live on campus, you're pretty close here. So you could see if I'm just hanging around the library and you wanted to grab some help, I might be here. I'm happy to meet in person instead of virtually. I just know virtually is kind of where all of you want to meet with us.
I'll say the same. I can meet in person or I can meet virtually in Zoom. And that link goes directly into my calendar. So if I have an hour free on any day, you are welcome to take up that hour and meet with me for a consultation. And those consultations can be about posters, they can be about content, they can be whatever it is. Just think of us as your personal librarians.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we can help with citations. I know a lot of people need help with citations. We can help with citations too.
We're going to let Annie finish up the presentation and then we'll leave it with Q&A. And I'm happy to stay well beyond the hour if people have questions. We got your questions in print and we can read through those and answer those as sort of a tail end to the recording.
Well, that was a brilliant presentation, so dynamic, so visual, so informative, and we just appreciate our Greg and Donna for taking time to tell us more about presentation and data visualization. So thank you. Just as a friendly reminder to all of our undergraduate research participants, we just want to remind you to learn more by visiting our.utah.edu. You can also connect with the staff by emailing us at our@utah.edu. We're there to support you. You can also receive undergraduate research advising. And as a friendly reminder to those that are UROP scholars, don't forget to fill out the form that we plopped in as a link for you to fill out. So thank you. We'll open it up for Q&A.